Hi there! So, my name's Carly, and I am an illustrator in the making, and I'm going to school for web and graphic design. And this is going to be hopefully a short guide on how I do night skies and clouds, asked by a friend of mine. And I actually do get asked a lot how I do it. This is by no means a guide on making, very realistic clouds or realistic night skies for that matter. This is just a quick guide to get some clouds and stars out there for a quick background. So I have a document here, and I actually have some commercial-free photos from Flickr, but I am going to give credit to the photographer. So this is from Patty's Photos on Flickr, and I just wanted to use this as an example because it's a good idea that if you really want to bring some life into your pictures that are outdoors, just look at different types of clouds because they come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, and some of them are more opaque like this, and some of them are more translucent. Sometimes you see the bottom of them depending on how you're looking up at the clouds, and it's very flat on the bottom and usually very poofy on the top. This cloud in particular, the set of clouds, has a lot of density at the top. There's lots of little jagged shapes up here, which I don't think we usually associate with clouds, but it's quite interesting. And you can even see the dark outlines along the edges of the clouds. Now, if I'm going to look at this picture, this is also from Flickr by Susanne Nilsson. You can see that just a little bit of sun is kind of peeking out through the clouds here, and you see these flat, soft clouds with light coming out to the top here. So just something to keep in mind when you're doing this, and also for your color use, because you can get a lot of interesting colors that come out of the way that sun hits through clouds and all that good stuff. So that's I'm not really going to go into that with my own personal example here, but that's just something to keep in mind, I suppose. So usually what I do is I take a big brush. I have a brush from a free, actually no, I paid for this. This is a gouache brush, I believe. It's from a kit that I bought, and it is from, his name is Kyle, and he has a brush set. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'll leave it in the footnotes somewhere. So actually, before I take out the brush, I'm just going to fill in the background with the color. And the way that I like to do it is to usually get a big range of color. Lots of darks and lots of lights. I usually start with the darkest color, so I'm going to go not with exactly black. I would save black for a little more contrast later, so I'm just going to go for this blue right here, maybe a little more red. There we go. And then I like to work my way up from the darkest color, so I'm going to go up a little bit in that same tone. I'm going to make it a little more red, because right now it's kind of a blue tone. I'm going to take this big brush, and I'm going to try and work out some shapes here, leaving a little bit of space between them. So it's almost as if the shadows or the lack of light shining between the clouds is kind of peeking through there. And what I'm thinking is that perhaps there is a light source over here somewhere, and the farther that it gets away from that, the less that you can see these clouds. So I'm going to keep going up a little bit. I've got this purple. I'm going to make it a little bit brighter. I'm also going to make it a little more red. I'm just going to go over that again. And I actually feel like I need some more negative space up here, so I'm going to take my dark color. Just going to go like that. And I really want to get some contrast, so this is where I'm going to take the black. I'm going to take my darkest color, I'm going to make it even darker, almost black. And I don't have it selected right there. And I'm going to come in and I'm just going to, right against the lightest part, I have the darkest color, just to give it a little bit of contrast. And now I'm going to start mixing up the colors. So this is where you can change the levels here of your brush, maybe the flow of the brush as well. And I'm going to start going into the blues, and I'm going to take kind of like a sky blue. I'm going to turn this down, and I'm just going to start mixing a little bit here in my clouds. Another really good way to do this, because I often end up flattening this later, is I take a soft light layer, and I take like a bright color to kind of contrast the tone, which we already had, which was kind of like a red-purple tone. Take a cool color. I'm going to turn down the layer so that it doesn't show through that much. Actually, be meaning to turn it up a little bit more than that. There you go. And right now you'll see that I can kind of get a glowy effect on this dark purpley color that's kind of like moonlight. So I got that there. And if I want to keep going, you know, I can go right into this neon blue and I can kind of add some more light in here. As you're starting to see here, that really shapes up. This isn't a good way to really learn how to like paint clouds traditionally or night skies traditionally, but it is a good way to cheat if you just want to get something in there. So now that we've got that, I would say at this point I'm going to flatten the stuff that I've already drawn. And I'm going to take the smudge tool, or the blur tool, but preferably the smudge tool, and I do actually have some special downloaded ones. But, you know, the one that comes with Photoshop should be fine. It's also from that same kit. I think it's called, like, Kyle's Mega brushes or something along those lines. Yeah, you can play with the strength of it up here. Just kind of blend it together. Kind of get, like, a watery, colory kind of look going on here. Just like that. Maybe bring up some of this lighter color, this glowy color that we've got going on here, so that it extends a little bit more upward. This is a really fast version of what I usually do, so if you really want to make this pop out, you know, I would keep blending and go over with your brush after you've blended it a little bit. Take your colors with the eyedropper tool that you have down here, for example, and just start working that back in. I'll turn this brush back up. You know, just go in and draw like little poofy clouds like such. And then just go in and finish up blurring this all together. And now just for some refining sort of touches here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a hard light layer. I'm going to try first, and I'm going to take the color that I started with, kind of a purpley, but a brighter version of it. I'm going to try that first. We'll see how that looks. Oh, I still have it on the smudge tool. That would be why nothing is showing up and now it's going to lag. But yeah, I want to get a little bit more contrast in here. That is far too bright, so I'm going to turn that down. So you can get a little bit of color here. So when I do these, I usually just want to play a lot with, you know, cool and warm colors. I like to get a lot of contrast so that it looks visually interesting. And of course, depending on the theme of whatever you're drawing, you might want to play around with that. And then let's say I zoom in here. You can do a lot of painting with the smudge tool as it is. I can go in and I can kind of smooth out where these big lumpy brush strokes kind of formed. My Photoshop is lagging a little bit because I am recording my screen. This is by the way, I didn't mention, but I'm drawing on a Mac, and this is Photoshop CC. So as you can see, if I were to go in and I were to take my brush, I could actually, I just like to eyedrop the color from the surrounding area that I'm looking at. And then I like to go in and just, you know, just draw in some shapes. And I think just for like a refining touch right before we add the stars, which is going to be coming really soon, I'm going to add maybe a little bit of purple here, just to continue the shape so that it doesn't fade away. There we are. I'm going to go in and do a little bit more of that. I'm going to take a brighter color to kind of give it a little highlight, making it a little bit more red than the color that I'm drawing on top of. And I'm just going to add a highlight to the outermost edges here. And I'm also going to take my smudge tool, don't have to do this, and I'm just going to work that in a little bit on the edges so that it kind of smooths in nicely. And obviously you're going to want to do a better job than this if you're actually drawing this, but as you can see, you can kind of get some cool effects here, and since this area is more blue over here, I might want to take, you know, like a more sky blue kind of color and continue outlining here. this isn't really looking like a cloud shape right here, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn that into one. But there we are. So now we have a little bit of cloud shape, and if you want, just for fun, you're going to have to be careful with this because it might make it look a little bit grainy, but if you want to, sometimes what I do is I take the lasso tool, I turn the feathering up quite large relative to the picture, so I'm going to make it, because this is quite a large image, I'm going to make it 100 pixels, and I'm just going to select part of the picture from one side, and then I go into my, where is it? Color balance. And maybe add a little bit more red. I'm going to move that out of the way so you can see that, or a little more blue. Just so that there's kind of like a flow of color that comes through. I'm going to adjust the shadows as well here. So that on one side of the image is a little more blue, and then it kind of fades into this red. And just to bring out the red a little bit more, I'm going to go over here. And I'm going to add a little bit more red, maybe a little more magenta as well. And you know, if you're really not feeling it, you can go in to like this part where there's a lot more highlights over here. And I can go to my levels or to my contrast. You know, and I can bring up the brightness a little bit perhaps. And then we get to the part that I like the most, which is adding the stars, which is really simple. I take a hard brush, not a soft-edged one, but a brush that has a hard edge. So this brush will do fine. It's kind of gouache brush or this hard oil brush, whatever it is. And I just draw little circles. And you know, sometimes the best thing to do, this brush won't work because it's kind of a rectangle, but if you take like this round brush here and make it quite small, if you just click with your touchpad or your mouse, that one won't work either. It's not really a great example because it's not solid all the way through. But usually you can kind of get a nice, perfect circle that's really solid. You might have to click on it a few times. And you can just kind of get a shape like that. That will just sort of guarantee that you get this nice, perfectly round shape. And I also like to draw little stars like this. I hold down the Shift key, and I start, whoa. Hold down the Shift key, and you start drawing a line like this so that it keeps it nice and straight. Choose an intersecting point and hold down the Shift key again. Make sure that you let go of the Shift key in between drawing those two lines. And as you can see, you got to be careful that it doesn't try and connect the last thing that you drew to the new one, just like that, and makes the line. And just go through and kind of do that. I'm going to keep doing that, I'm sorry. It's just a matter of when you kind of let go of the Shift key. And I do it like every single time. So there we are. I'm going to zoom out. And then you can just go, and what I really like to do is I like to add more stars, I guess, by taking the color of the clouds, making a brighter version of it, and then drawing little stars actually in the clouds, as if they're kind of showing through the clouds a little bit. That one isn't looking very nice, but let's just take it off. And I feel like that really adds a nice little touch to it. This really works for kind of the storybook aesthetic that I use this a lot for. I have a kids book sort of project that I'm working on where I use a lot of backgrounds like this. It kind of takes place up in the clouds. And if you want to add a mood in there and stuff, you know, you can have some light really bouncing off of the clouds. Put a few more stars in here. And if you feel like you really need some more contrast, it's just not working out, then what I would do is just go again and make a new layer on top. You know, maybe take a soft light layer, and now that you've finished your picture pretty much, you know, go and take like a bright blue. Or maybe not even that, maybe more like an orange, like a sun kind of light. I'm not sure. You might have to play around with it a little bit. I'm just going to take a big brush here, if I can find a nice one. This isn't going to look like what I want, but you'll see that you can kind of get some more light coming in. Especially if you take a very, very big brush and you just kind of lightly patter it on top. You can get some cool effects there, but personally I don't really like that, so I'm not going to use it. And, you know, I would just keep going through with your little stars all the way through here. I would add some more over here, just kind of patter them in and out. And one thing that really brings it together, I find, is if you take I'm gonna have to find a good brush again. Most of these brushes came from that kit. Some of them have kind of silly names. If you add stars closer together to each other, so that they kind of have like little groups, especially smaller stars like that, you add little tiny stars in between the bigger stars, and don't forget to put some stars close to the edges of the page, unless you don't want them there. I feel like that really makes it, like, especially like up here, that really makes it feel like they're more randomly placed. And then yeah, and if you were to keep going through that, you would have a pretty nice, very sparkly night sky. So, I hope that helps someone, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm BlueMerle on Tumblr.com, and thanks for watching. Bye!